Excited to have a big, great set of speakers over here. Actually, people that will be interacting with as we kind of talk about innovations in the retail space, what we kind of see. And I think we had about a 30-minute chat before we kind of came in, and I think really exciting stuff as I hear about where things are, how basically people are looking at it, and what the convergence is basically coming through in the spaces. Look, as I get started, I'm Ramesh Jayaraman. We get that on the, I'll basically talk about capitalizing on the retail growth space through innovations that we kind of see from a Tyco's perspective. Many folks ask the question, Tyco, retail, what's the relationship? Interestingly for us, we've been about 45 years in the retail space. Actually, about more than 10% of our revenues come specifically out of the retail space, slightly more than $1 billion a year that we do over here. We operate in about 100+ countries, more than 1,000 offices as we look at the arena. And, as I mentioned, retail has been an exciting space, and especially as you look at the India and the Asia markets, a big part of our growth equation where we kind of are going. Fundamentally, people know us through our brands. So Sensormatic, a pretty heavily known brand in the space. As you walk around, Sensormatic, like Nokia is to mobile phones, Sensormatic kind of becomes to the electronic article surveillance side, which really helps with loss prevention, which is how we kind of started in the space. Multiple other brands in the back end. We use a platform called TrueView, and clearly areas like software house and CEM systems, which basically come in as you look at commercial applications as well as retail applications across our various arenas. Our customer base, we basically work with about 80% of the top 200 retailers, so pretty much most of the names that you'd be aware of. We work with them on a global basis, and clearly as we look at India, we've been blessed to have about 60+% share in the Tier 1 space, and today the Tier 2 space, a pretty big growth part of our market. More than 35% of our revenues actually just come in from the Tier 2 space, and we basically align our solution sets and what we do specifically for that market as well today. As we kind of get started, look, really this is about trends. I think no surprise as you just look at the marketplace, and from my role as I look at it, India, China today are clearly the growth leaders as we look at new store growth, new innovations that are kind of taking place and actually getting implemented. A big part of the growth, as we look at it from the developed markets to right here, it is going to happen in India. And clearly, as we look at the space, not just in the Tier 1 towns, but also the Tier 2 towns, we see a big growth element taking place from a store and from a store performance standpoint. Interestingly, as we basically reach out to our retailers, try and understand, and we do this, like I would say, on every 5 to 6 months, we actually go through and refresh some of what we see, what that basically means as we look at our strategies, our go-to-market of what we do. And fundamentally, 3 things come out from a retailer's perspective. It's about profitability pressures that basically exist. 2, it's about productivity improvements. How can we basically make it more efficient? And I think, as you'll basically hear the panel speak later, it's also about how we look at the omni-channel space and what we kind of do out there. Gets a lot into mobility and also into the arena of retail business intelligence and how we can basically have actionable data by which we can actually start taking some actions around it. The other side, really, from a store perspective, also basically gets into, how do you start looking at store execution? What do you have to do to basically start looking at employee productivity? Start looking at arenas of, how you can basically stop having inventory distortion within a store. So is the right products available at the right places when a consumer kind of walks in? And clearly, I still think, India has a long way to go as we look at the element for shrink reduction, because, and as I'll explain as we move forward, those same sensory technologies today are basically being leveraged to actually perform a lot of functions and actually integrate with some of the areas that our panel speakers will talk about as well as we move forward. Fundamentally, this is just a view of what we've traditionally done. It's been a loss prevention space. That's how we kind of started in the arena. So when you enter a store, one of the first things you'll actually notice is an electronic article system. It's basically a pedestal that's basically plugged out there. from a video surveillance perspective, commonly known as CCTV, or from an access control perspective, which basically goes in to stop access into certain areas. What we've fundamentally looked at is areas like, how do you basically prevent theft? Look at, shopper safety, start looking at, organized crime, how you kind of start preventing organized crime, but also into the arena of, how you prevent fraud and how you basically ensure that the internal losses because of employee theft as well as consumer theft is reduced to the minimum. More so, what's really taking place is it's migrating from just loss prevention to what we call a store performance. Fundamentally, the same sensors that are available out there with certain additions today are basically helping with arenas like shopper intelligence. So it becomes a focus around store traffic. How do you basically go look at the efficiency? Are you basically staffing the right way? And really getting into areas of employee intelligence, around labor reduction. How you basically start looking at store staffing levels, just to name a few. I'll give you a few examples, and I think, as the panel kind of speaks, you'll basically see a lot more application of what those basically mean. I think one of the first ones we see is integration of point of sale with video. Traditionally what this has done is you've done a point of sale transaction, but when you fundamentally look at it, there are things what we in the retail arena call a sweethearting, which basically means that people are actually scanning two items but placing one on top of another, so that way they're only scanning one and your revenue register is actually low than what it needs to be. Second areas fundamentally would also be, like changing the barcode, right? So you can actually change a few digits and bring the pricing point of it much, much lower than what it traditionally needs to be. Kind of real-life examples that we see on a daily basis. And as we look at implementation in multiple arenas, you're actually seeing that the video is getting integrated to a point of sale. And if you actually look at the right-hand side of the screen, you'll actually start noticing that you can actually take video captures, really go look at if the transaction has taken place, and have an audit and also an ability to kind of prevent fraud, but also ensure that you basically got the right products going out from an inventory standpoint. A second area really is around store performance, really focused around traffic. And I think I think even yesterday in the discussions where some of the retailers, the mall owners kind of spoke about, it really basically started focusing on, look, am I basically getting the efficiency? Am I getting the footfall that I kind of need to ensure the store can perform the way it's supposed to? And when we kind of start getting into it, it really starts getting into the KPIs from a store performance perspective. Really, it starts getting into staffing ratios, which really gets into your customer experience standpoint. Are you basically looking at it from a customer perspective and providing the tools that's kind of needed? And really, the third one I would call gets into an area of customer behavior. So we actually leverage the same video technology, tied back with analytics, and actually start drawing heat maps that a lot of our merchandising teams with the retailers tend to use, and they basically actually start figuring out where to position what products and how you can basically start improving the efficiency, and what are those places where you basically place the high margin products where people have a tendency to basically go pick it up. Think of it as an example of chocolates in the front when children are basically checking out. They have a tendency of basically picking up a few, and adults also have a tendency of picking up those things, but around certain parts of store, and how we basically go leverage that. The third area really gets into inventory intelligence. I think it's still slowly picking up over here, but I'm going to give you a global example from what we kind of see, and this is one we can name off. So I don't think it's any more a concept. People talk about RFID, item level intelligence. These are not things anymore that are concepts. I'm talking about real live examples, things we are basically getting paid for. These are not pilots out there that are basically taking place, but fundamentally this is looking at about 700 plus stores that we're basically deploying as we kind of speak, really starting to look at how to improve the inventory levels, or the accuracy of the inventory as you look at each of those places. The initial results that have basically come out have been very, very enlightening. So we actually have another global retailer that's actually going to deploy this worldwide, which is going to be a combination of EAS as well as item level intelligence. as they basically get into the space. So clearly a lot of stuff that we see, and this clearly ties back into the supply chain side as well, because as you look at fundamentally when something gets tagged at source, you're actually able to capture the data and the efficiency of what's happening through the retail chain and make it more efficient as you kind of move forward. I think ultimately, what you're, at least in the space we play in, what we're ultimately seeing is, look, it's moving from safety, security, more towards traffic, more towards inventory, more towards integration with the other systems that basically lie within a store, and you're really helping out with better store execution. So I think as we kind of move in, I've got a great set of team members, panelists that we kind of spent time earlier today, and I think it'll be great to kind of hear, I think, a great representation of panelists over here. Here both from a retailer's perspective, here from a hardware, software, and the integration perspective, what we kind of see in the space, and I'm excited to basically be out here and take us through the next hour of discussion. So thanks in advance. I appreciate everyone's time, and I think we're basically going to move into the next session of basically having a discussion. And look, it's open for questions. We would love to basically hear people ask what do you guys kind of see, and I think we've got a great set of people. We'll try and basically address those as we move forward. All right, so what we'll do is, I think it's a great set of speakers. As we get into it, I figured we'll basically start with the retail view, really as we start looking at innovations, what it kind of means, but I think, it always starts with the customer first. So, Deepak, as you look at casual fashion, look at the growth, I think it'll be great to hear your perspective on where you see technology play a part and where you see the innovations coming through play a part.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Well, I can say that technology is very important for the business to take decisions, whereas top management team is concerned. There are a lot of issues coming day-to-day basis that this is an issue, there is another issue, and these issues can only be addressed if we have proper data behind it. And these data, without the data, we go into the mode of firefighting and find a solution for that particular case. If we want to take any strategic decision at the top level, we can only do it if we have the proper database in our systems through which we can take the decisions. Otherwise, we are just finding a solution for that particular case. And I think it improves the efficiency of the top management team to take the decisions, to work on the decisions more precisely, instead of getting too much into the fact that what is the fact. Because normally when the issues comes in, it comes without the full fact. In fact, can only be there if we have the proper data with us. I can give you a small example, like we have to take buying decisions, what we should buy, why we should buy, why is it selling good, this particular style is selling fantastic, this particular style is not selling good at all. So we might consider why it's not selling good, so we get into we need to know why it's not selling good, and we also need to know why it's selling good. So I think retail is all about detail, and the detailed information can only be get from the proper ERP system or proper system we have in place. That's what I can say. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. I mean, it's always helpful when you basically start looking at it again, getting back to basics, understanding the customer, understanding what their needs are. Shamik, I think I'm going to move on to you. I think from a PwC perspective, work with a lot of retailers, give consulting advice. What do you basically see in the space? Where is it kind of going? And what kind of applications and areas do you basically see that are basically gaining ground?
Good morning to everyone. Am I audible? Let us take a step back and kind of relate what's happening in the industry today as far as retailers goes. All of us in this room who are retailers are probably grappling with the economic challenge of the world. At the same time, we need to ensure that our business grows. So the saying says that, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. So when the going gets tough, this is the time to innovate. So as far as retail goes, I think, there are two buckets in which you can classify the innovation. One is the customer-centric apps, where your customer touch points are there, because that is extremely important at the end of the day. Your business is being run because the customer is there, the footfall is there. But extremely important, which we at times ignore, is that while we need to ensure high customer loyalty, great customer experience, we need to ensure that our back end, our house is in order, in terms of efficient supply chain, loss protection, ensuring that the data that is getting exponentially gathered even up till the lowest granular level, you're able to take the right insight of it. More so, if I take a cue from one of your slides, if you're trying to get into a tier 2 city, if your house is not in order, you may have the best of technology on the front end, but if you don't have an efficient supply chain to ensure that there is a product which is there on the shelf for which the demand is there, your footfall will go. So the innovation has to be twofold, because your customers, your consumers are becoming mobile. And I would say there are 4 or 5 important buying patterns which are evolving because of social media, because of aggregation of crowd, the growing culture of using different apps, ease of how you are transacting when you're doing a payment if you're buying online. So these are driving a lot of consumer behavior in terms of how they want to buy, what they want to buy, and from where they want to buy. So as retailers, I think we need to see, where do we innovate and integrate both the customer-centric apps or customer-centric requirements and take it back behind into the supply chain, the data analytics, the entire, efficiency piece of it, so that, there is a seamless integration between the front-end part of retailer and the back-end part of the retailer. So this is something that we are seeing as trend when we talk to any retailer, because, most of the time we feel that, we should focus on customer loyalty. Great, that is excellent. But if you don't utilize the data that is coming in, and if you're not efficient in your supply chain, your customer loyalty beyond a point goes down. Because in today's world, I think, customer loyalty, that word itself is probably a myth, because a customer will go where their experience is good the first time. So that is the first touch point that you have. So taking that back into your organization and working to fix these pieces of the jigsaw puzzle is extremely important, and that is where innovation has to come in.
I think as we look at it, even from understanding data, I think that's kind of what I heard from both of you talk about, how to kind of leverage it. And I'm actually going to go back to some of the arenas by which you actually start capturing the data, right? Understanding where the customer is, how they basically interact. And I think as I look at Simon, Simon, I'd love to hear your perspective. I know you basically get down to the fundamentals of looking at the point of sale hardware, the printer, how that basically starts capturing the data, which actually starts understanding what the behavior is, what we kind of do. So Simon, if we can get your thoughts, that'll be great.
Good morning, everyone. Just like to sort of see and share with you some of the feelings I've got about how we can use printers today. Historically, people just think of a printer as actually just being the sort of part that actually prints the receipt. But we're very much aware that the whole POS market is changing quite rapidly, actually. And for myself, because I cover sort of Western Europe as well, I do see some changes in India which sort of missing out certain steps in the whole market. Generally, at the moment, there's a move in Western Europe and also America to concentrate more on mobile POS, and very much tablet-based solutions itself, which is actually happening. But that tablet-based solution doesn't necessarily have to be a mobile printer. It can, of course, but it's trying how to get the best use of the overall POS system. One of the things which people are trying to lead with now is trying to reduce barriers between the customer and the user. Very much the move in Europe and the US is how do you actually get people to want to come back in the store? As you can see with the people doing a lot of online shopping now, it's harder now for your retailer to actually get people to come back in the store and spend their money. So when you do get them in there, it's critical that you actually get them to actually part with their money and actually get the goods that you've actually got. So we see our role as actually trying to aid that. So the solutions we're doing is aiming towards mobile POS. That can be, as I said, tablet-based solutions, but even then leading towards how do you integrate people's smartphones. We've heard from some of the other speakers here this morning that apps and the way that they're actually encouraged is actually going to be a large revenue generator in the future. But what we see as the printer side is how do you actually integrate that when they come in store. I know when we talked about systems, how you've got in-store and in-store recognition of that customer. That's the critical factor, I believe, is how do you recognise that client when they walk through your doors. Generally, a loyalty scheme is the best way because you can track their data, but you then need to target them with the right coupons or the right offers itself to actually try and grow your business. And we see that using the printer is one side to actually achieve that. One of the things we should get focused on quite strongly with our customer base is they want to try and get it for the lowest amount of money. And I know with India, one of the things always is, I don't want to pay for it. And what we're trying to look at is how do you actually use the printer, which has got the data stream coming through from your retail back office system, to actually benefit that. And we're actually looking at ways to actually interpret that data stream to actually then focus coupons based on the data coming down targeted to that customer. So again, we've got developments coming along in the next 6 months which actually will target that market sector. Really, I do see that the technology on the point of sale really is the sort of area to be the interface with that client. And traditionally we see it in terms of the receipt you're getting, but we're seeing much a move also across the world of how do you actually get kiosk solutions. And again, kiosk is one way to actually personalise your target with that client and also use that kiosk to actually be almost like an endless aisle. So again, we're trying to actually get, if you don't have the stock today, can you capture the sale now and actually provide it later on? Some of the other speakers will talk about the fulfillment process, which they can actually do, and I believe the two things are linked. So we see that as being a very key factor in today's market.
I think looking at the data, I know there's a lot of discussion around it. It really becomes applications, what you kind of do. And I think, as we were talking about it, Amit, it'll be helpful to basically give an insight on, how you guys start looking at pulling that POS-based data and basically start looking from an applications perspective.
Morning, everybody. So when I say NEC, we are market leader in Japan. So we have more than 40 years experience. So when we going to launch, we launched almost 3 years back in India. So we thought what to launch, what not. So we did a small market survey. We actually went to customers, prospects, and the top retailers. And we thought, three common things. All of them want mobility. All of them want rugged applications to run their complex operations. And they want pan-India support. So we thought, why not bring what we have in Japan? So we already introduced analytics software, which gives you customer behavior, their age, their buying patterns. We are launching dual screen touchscreens, POS. One side it is facing a customer, and other one is on operational side. Plus, we are soon going to launch mobility POS, so that will replace your desktops, your desk POSes. Plus, very soon we are going to launch an application which will give you an omni-channel, a CRM-based application, plus, inbuilt features like customer loyalty. That's our objective for India market.
Well, thank you for that. Rocky, I know a lot of this gets into integration. It basically talks about integration, pulling the data, looking at what the applications may be. Will be very helpful to get your insights as to what you guys see from a DBS perspective and how you basically look at the market over here.
Sure. Thank you, Ramesh. Actually, it's great to be up here today and to see a lot of familiar faces. A lot of the companies that are sitting up here are companies that we work with. I'm very proud to say that we've established a very good rapport with them. Now, I think I'd like to break it down. One is about the internal processes, as Ramesh mentioned. It comes back to the basics, really, and this is something I've been speaking about over the years. And of course, some of the retailers have matured in their own, processes and how they run their businesses. But there are those that are still starting today, and the basics still apply, which is you are facilitating yourself by, one, getting something into your business ASAP. Don't wait till you're 100 stores before you start integrating your processes and looking at streamlining your business. Start in day one, because you're also incorporating a culture into your business, and the employees will get used to functioning according to a certain process. So I'd say that's number one. Number two is working with applications that are simple, easy to use, integrated, where you are reducing manual intervention, and hence the error in that naturally comes right back down to the bottom line for your business. So an integrated approach is very, very important. I think to add to that, what we found, considering our applications are worldwide and we also work across the globe, India is very unique in the way in which the business operates, and for a retailer it's even harder because of all the various taxation policies that keep changing. So unless you have something that is with it and is on the ball in terms of knowing and relating that within the system, say at the point of sales, then you're in a lot of trouble. So you have to have companies that you work with and products that you work with that are taking the taxation, the localization implications very seriously, because that today in India has a major implication on your business. Moving from the back end of the systems, which is always at the head office, the financials, the supply chain management, the CRM, your promotions, how you put your security settings, etc. That all should link very, very well into the front end, which is your point of sales, and the extent of functionality can go on and on. You can move into whether it's a brick and mortar business that you have, whether it's an online business that you have. The extent of the functionality is tremendous. So it really does matter, and as Shamit mentioned, get your house in order first. Know what you want, know what the objectives are. So moving on to the second part, which is now about the data. We've all been talking about the data. Deepak mentioned about the data in terms of, as a retailer. And I would have to agree that one is to capture the data, but then it's about utilizing the data. So in the first sense, we all know, for example, that we're selling 5 boxes of apples or whatever it might be. But who are you selling it to? I mean, that extent of data coming from the customer is not there today. So the type of promotions, and as Simon mentioned, the touch points to the customers and knowing what promotions to give them and understanding what they want, when do they shop, how do they tend to buy, and relating it to the same person is what's missing today. So as a point of innovation, I think that is very important for us all to move into. And that will allow you to analyze your data better, as well as to move into predictive analysis. So again, you're kind of taking away the need for having to rack your brain and get everyone in consensus, because the data is giving you historical trends and you can move forward with that. The third thing that I would like to talk about is innovation in terms of the way in which companies like us, vendors today, provide to you. As I mentioned, there are a lot of the companies up here we work with. I'm very proud to say that it's an innovative way to move forward in the market when you have companies that you're working with that share the same objectives, not only together in terms of providing you the support, the needs that you have, but not only do we understand our business very well, but we understand your business very well, which is very important. So I would always advise you not to move with companies that are just into, the shotgun approach and are masters of everything and, experts or think they're experts at everything, but really are not master at any. Work with companies that understand retail. For those that are into hospitality, understand hospitality, and both of them are very different. Within that, fashion is, for example, is very different from food and groceries. So, you have to try and find companies that work together, work as a partnership with you, have objectives together, and understand what your targets are, and work to achieve your targets through providing innovative mechanisms.
I think, it's interesting. I know we basically sit and talk about, we've focused a lot on the front end, what the customer basically needs, where it comes through. But I think a lot of it also basically comes through in the supply chain. How do you kind of make that efficient, what you kind of do? And I think, Raj, it'll be great to kind of get your insights and what you guys see in the space over here.
Thank you, Ramesh. I think I'm improving. Last year when Ramesh and I were together, I was the last speaker. He's been nice to me. Over 1 year I've been able to influence him a little bit, so I am the second last now. Here I bring in 2 perspectives. One is of the logistics and supply chain. After all the glamorous talk of point of sale customer, something which we don't understand, frankly speaking, we do the back end, and of course we all know Walmart says we are a supply chain company. And the second perspective is more of being a devil's advocate. I'd like to quote, there are some international visitors also sitting in the audience, but the Indians would relate. We are obsessed in India, so I bring in Indian perspective, kitna deti hai. We know this famous advertisement of Maruti. We all see it daily. Kitna deti hai? In our viewpoint, a technology or innovation is as good or as bad as long as we get something out of it. So this is what we feel is the base. Now let's look at what does kitna deti or how much we get out of technology. Primarily three areas. Fill rate, whether at the warehouse level, whether at the store level, whether at a SKU level. Any technology or innovation is as good if your fill rate is maintained. And I feel we all are grappling. You might do anything at point of sale. I don't have the product. The back end goofs up. You're not going to sell it. So any technology, mobile apps, I don't think it's going to be of any use. And that too in Indian context where we have 29 countries, not one country, with a very stringent tax regime, this is much more a challenge. The second is on time in full. That's a big factor because that determines your shrinkage in the forward supply chain. That how much on time in full, and of course the back end also in terms of the vendors giving on time in full, and this relating to a picking, to a delivery, to your store on time in full. I believe today we are grappling with this. We have technologies. Now let's look at who's implementing these technologies, what are those, and who is not. Our thought process, and when we are working with various customers, is any technology, whether it is a warehouse management system, whether using a handheld for delivery, whether it is RFID tag and barcode, if your SKU count is less, I repeat, if your SKU count is less, the technology is implementable, you can afford it as a retailer for your backend, and you do that. So today beverages, less SKUs, but wonderful technology. You directly do a go-to-market on a handheld, collect cash and come back. So their technology comes. When it comes to any grocery format or convenience format, or even apparel or department stores, where SKUs are from 200,000 to 400,000, there the cost starts becoming an inhibiting factor. But of course shrinkage impacts you. So there are companies in India, logistics companies as well as supply chain companies. We all know that Future Supply Chain has done a great job. They have 7 platforms, or 7 to 8, somebody can correct me, where every aspect is through technology, everything is through mechanized systems. You have put to light, pick to light, you have shelf to pick, that is the shelf comes out with the entire SKU and you put it in a trolley. So these technologies have come in, but in our viewpoint, we are slow to imbibe that because we always are seeing the cost benefit analysis, and by nature, we accept shrinkage. By nature, many people accept shrinkage and are not ready to invest. Today, if you look at the final part I'm covering, at the delivery, which is the most critical part, the product reaches a store, you don't have space to unload the goods. The vehicles are not with a tailgate and a dolly, wherein the driver can come and simply deliver. You don't have a weighing mechanism by which you do. You can cross-check what's been sent from the warehouse. So in terms, the technology is missing there. So to sum up, technology is as good as bad, provided we can afford it and we can implement that successfully. Thank you.
Great insights, Raj. Just for the clarification, last year I was one of you, I was sitting over there, so I wasn't the moderator. Listen, I think there's great insights. I clearly see, and I think, even as we look at the inventory intelligence space, it's beginning to move more towards the supply chain, the integration with the store. So I think clearly great insights that you have as you look at this space. I always start with the retailer, start with the customer, end with the customer, right? So, Tanay, I know from your perspective, it'll be great to hear what you see, where you are, and I think, as you guys are expanding, what kind of insights you have.
Good morning, everyone. It's always bad to speak the last because I think everyone has spoken about everything. But still, furnishing, as you all know, is a very unorganized sector. Only, I think, about 1% of the retailers are in the organized framework in this industry. So, as we are growing, innovation in technology becomes very, very important. We started from probably a handbook, maintaining accounts, the handbook, moving on to a tally, and now a whole and soul ERP system. Because for a retailer, the most important, I think, there are two aspects in the retailer's point of view: purchase and sale. So when you purchase, you have to know the right SKUs, the right products that are selling. It has to be filled in at the time. I'm sorry, I'll try to explain you where I'm coming from. We are actually a furnishing house where we just display the samples in our stores. We do not carry stocks. We do not carry inventories in the stores. We carry inventory in the warehouses. So supply chain is very important for us. Inventory management is very, very important for us. So as I was saying, so purchasing at the right time, minimum order quantity, maintaining all this is very important. And without proper technology, proper ERP, proper models of innovation about technology, we cannot procure the goods at the right time. We don't know how to procure goods at the right time. We do not know what are the problems that we face. Then there are various kind of CRMs existing in the market now. These are very simple marketing tools, basically. Just sending maybe a birthday card to your regular customer might act as a very good marketing tool, and it is very cheap. It costs you nothing. You just have to have a proper CRM to tell you when to do it. So that's very important again. So all over for us, supply chain, ERP, and I think point of sale, all these technologies that have come up are getting more and more important, telling us about our customers, how to approach them, and how to follow them. The tools are becoming very, very important. I think someone spoke about theft control now, which is getting more and more important in the retail sector. We deal into bed linen, which are very probably small products of small value, and theft is very common. I mean, it's very difficult to control it. So with proper theft management softwares, we can always do it. Thank you.
I think, look, as we just, I think just great insights from everyone. I think one of the things, and, I spent the last 3-4 days just meeting analysts over here, understanding the retail space, clearly had a chance to meet a lot of retailers yesterday, kind of listen in. The big buzzword today is omni-channel retailing, right? It's just a big buzzword. You see the Flipkarts, the Junglees, just that's basically out there. And I think I'd love to at least get insights from a few of you as to what you think. And maybe I'll basically start with Soumik. From your perspective, omni-channel, a big buzzword. I think as I talk to even multiple consulting companies, kind of see that coming out here. How do you basically see that happening today? Where do you basically see that space kind of going?
See, the trend is that will grow, but the challenge is that, there will be a huge amount of consolidation and the people who will survive are people who will be agile in terms of integrating these multiple channels. And if you're an online shop, if you're an online retailer, if your supply chain is not right, even if you take the example of Flipkart, it became successful because as of now, the supply chain has been extremely efficient. So what you order, you get it at your doorstep against a service level, that within these many days, you will get it. Whatever you search for, it is there. So, they have been able to innovate and integrate both the aspect. They have been able to put their house in order. So the supply chain at this point in time looks very efficient. But as you grow, as your volumes grow, that will become a big challenge for any retailer who is going online. And if that is not fixed, you can acquire, customer once, twice, but, third time, once you fail, the third time the customer will not come back to that site. So that will be a big challenge. The brick and mortar will continue to grow, because still, as culture in our country, there will be a huge percentage of population who would like to drop into your store and buy. I don't think, pardon me ladies, a lady would like to, go to a Nalli's online shop and buy a sari. Lady would like to get the salesman to open up 20 and then maybe select one, or maybe not even select one, but that touch point will continue to be there. So, it is a mix and a balance of both, but at the same time, irrespective of whether it's a brick and mortar or online, you need to be innovative. And you cannot, I keep hearing from a lot of retailers that I'm small. Your size or your number of stores doesn't define whether you're small or big. You may be only a 5-store business, you may be a 10-store business, you may be a 50-store business. The complexities of your business could be as good as somebody who is running 100 stores. So don't think that your business complexity is defined by the number of stores you have. So you know, all the business sizes, different retailers, you need to innovate and ensure that you make the best out of technology. And be very careful. Don't invest on technology for short-term benefit. Technology will not give you a short-term benefit. It's not for a short-term gain. It is for a long-term play, and that is where the key message is.
Well, talking about supply chain, clearly with omni-channel, brick and mortar, it's getting more complicated. So Raj, from your perspective, what do you see, where is it kind of going? And I think, once you kind of answered that, my question to Amit would be just from a perspective of, point of sale, because I understand that's a very cash on delivery based model. So maybe we address the supply chain and then kind of understand the cash on delivery model. I think that'll be pretty helpful.
I think we're becoming good friends here itself. Need not wait for another year. I'm second now. The point is, as I said, I'll play a bit of devil's advocate. We believe that all the emphasis, all the investments in the e-commerce or multi-channel or omni-channel, what we call, is on the glamorous part, the front-end part. People typically have a Silicon Valley partner. They develop everything on the front end on the web. But the back end is afterthought in most cases. We work with few, we have spoken to few, and we have not worked with few. So in our viewpoint today, this is something which you do as an afterthought. And there's no integration of ASN coming in. Since we are on the topic of technology, I'll give you a parlance. Today, when we work with a lot of auto companies on the inbound logistics side, you won't believe we are actually on EDI, servers talk to each other. So whenever a schedule is done, you get what you call as a schedule for the fortnight and a schedule for the day. And that schedule is mapped to the nearest location from where a pickup has to be done. That is, might be a supplier or a distribution center sending it to a consumer. That's the level of integration and that's the level of trust. What we find in the e-commerce or multi-channel space is you don't trust that your platform can talk to our platform. I think that's the biggest problem today. And since somebody mentioned Flipkart, Swamik mentioned, they started with a LSP or an outsourced partner. They're doing it themselves. Because they felt that the outsourced partner was not good. They didn't have the bandwidth or the technology or the physical resources to deliver, but we don't believe. It is that you are not transparent enough to tell the back end what you need. You are always looking at the back end as a compromise for your overall cost model. And you didn't bring in that aspect in terms of integrating the back end with the front end. And today, auto companies do that very successfully. I think until that is not done, this is just going to be e-commerce, going to be a PE fantasy. And a lot of companies like ours, we are around 2,200 crores and the largest in India. We really don't touch e-commerce companies unless they have a very strong backbone in terms of their credentials as a company. Because we're always worried that we don't have the visibility and we may not get the monies also. So in a way, e-commerce will take time as far as our industry is concerned.
I think, I guess a big question around that is also cash on delivery, right? The model here is completely different in terms of the credit card usage, what you can, from a point of sale perspective, Amit or Simon, what do you guys kind of see? What does that basically mean to your business? From the end, where it was usually a register ringing at a store, now it's ringing at someone's house and it's mobile. What do you guys kind of see from that perspective?
So as I say, we have mobile POS, so which can deliver you at your residence, the place where you want. So plus we have omni channels. You need not have a store, then you have websites to deliver. So you're getting closer to the customer, he can order through a website and then pick up a delivery later on, maybe 2 days or 3 days later. That saves time. So we are bringing that. Apart from this, we are bringing what Chanel is using worldwide. Again, our omni-channel. Plus through mobility, you can deliver, even accept credit card at customer location. You are giving them option to pay through cash, credit card, or any pay pass.
Thank you for that. I guess another big topic, that I hear about is Tier 2, right? I mean, everyone sits and talks about the big retailers, what's kind of going out there, but when you fundamentally look at the basics of the space, I don't think it's the hundreds of stores that basically makes it. It's the tens of thousands of others that basically makes the big part of what it is. And I think, Simon, from your perspective, what do you see from a product standpoint? How does that basically evolution mean? Where does it kind of take you?
One thing which I really see is very important in the market is actually the connectivity and how you communicate with your customer. That, I think, is a very critical factor. You have to make the customer experience as good as possible. I know it seems a very obvious thing to say in retail, but that really makes the key difference. Why would they want to come into your shop? And then how do you actually make that experience as nice as possible that they'll then come back again? I think you can use technology to boost that, and actually how you achieve that. And some of the other people said about how fulfillment of that side. I mean, again, in some parts of the world, you've got the large supermarket chains that actually do delivery to your door. That may not happen actually a moment in India, but the idea is you can actually use people in store to actually add to extra items you don't currently carry, but maybe carry through your warehouse system, so you can then do delivery to that basis. I see the point of sale as being that point where you can actually communicate that to the client and actually be the sort of portal to go back to your supply chain management to be able to fulfill that. And I think that will come as the next step. And in terms of the Tier 2 retailers, I believe that is a way forward on that side. So really critical thing, I believe, is the communication aspect. So again, it's how do you actually get your system to talk to other people's systems, and by having sort of access points on that side to be able to get data out to people, because I think the critical thing we've actually been talking about here is data, and I think that's the key factor. The point of sale is a very good point for that data, because you actually have printing out that data at that point. So if you can use a portal at that stage to actually transfer that data, it gives you a very strong point to analyse what the spend is and who that person is, which is the critical thing, knowing your customer.
I think, Deepak, what do you see? What do you see the differences with your Tier 1 versus, as you basically get into Tier 2? Is there a fundamental difference of things that you guys kind of need, or how you're basically implementing?
Well, from Tier 1 to Tier 2, of course, there would be a lot of difference in the product, what they're expecting in those regions. So, as I told you previously also, in retail, when you're looking for different regions or point of sales, you really have to understand the market, you really have to understand the requirement of the market at that point of time. What are people expecting? Maybe what we are selling in Delhi, in Select City Walk, that is going to be a great store, is completely different what we want to sell at Kanpur or Nagpur, So we need to understand it from a point of view that what is people expecting out of the brand, and how do they take the brand and relate the brand to them. And that is for sure we need to capture all those data, all those information, and kind of styles we are selling there, kind of sizes we want to sell there, kind of colors we want to sell there. It's definitely going to be different from Tier 1 to Tier 2.
And I know that's been a learning for us in this market as well. I think in the last 5 years, traditionally what we kind of did in the Tier 1 space, and I think Raki alluded that too as well, as you look at the global markets versus the India market, we actually had to go create product lines, platforms, like taking the example of Nalli, we actually had to go create a sari tag, because just the buying pattern of how it was stacked, what was kind of done, became completely separate. So it's a very good insight. I think moving on to Raki, you kind of mentioned, look, it's not just about 100 plus stores, it's really about looking at what it kind of means, start early, and I think as we look at the Tier 2 space, what do you see out there? What are the applications, what's kind of happening there?
I think actually that's where, for vendors like us, is where the money is. The majority of the cities and states are Tier 2, Tier 3. I mean, we talk about the metros, only 4 of them. And there are 43, I think, different parts within India, correct me if I'm wrong, and each one of them is like a country within India in itself because of the language and the locality of it, the ways in which they do business. As Deepak mentioned, the complete trends differ, the behavioral patterns differ for each of them. I think in terms of moving forward positively within these various cities, I think it's also a very important piece of that is the partner model and having the local support to support your business and your growth. Most best of breed type of applications, if I can talk about applications, will have a process in place. And as a retailer, you will say, well, you redefine and re-engineer my process for me. But then there are those applications which are more for the small, medium enterprise. And please remember that a small, medium enterprise anywhere else in the world, as per revenue definition, is a large organization over here. So you need the versatility of an application that can change on the fly. You don't need expensive equipments and large companies to provide you with products that you can really change yourself if it's that simple, which you'll need to have because you need to have, again, the data to be able to make the right decisions, to be able to change that on the fly. And I think having local partners that can be by your side and facilitate the education process, because this is still new in these territories, and we shouldn't expect that you know everything. While we hope as vendors you know how you want to run your business, as opposed to asking us how you should run it, we can definitely advise you how you want to run, how you should run it based on best practices and based on what the data is showing you. So do find companies that have local presence and can move with you, whether you're opening up in Tier 2 somewhere up north as well as in the south. So do find companies that have the reach, have the presence, have the alliances to be able to go from hardware to software to iPads or mobile or whatever it might be, because you're helping yourself work with a one-stop shop that can act as a consulting and advisor for you. I just want to touch a point, and we didn't really look at that. I don't think we've really understood, and coming back to loss prevention as a major piece here, I don't think we've understood the numbers here. I just want to raise a few numbers for us all. The Global Retail Theft Barometer does a study every year, and India has been identified as the highest. Approximately 2.38% of inventory is lost. That relates to a $2.6 billion loss to the bottom line of people like yourselves because of loss prevention. Let me just break down what we're talking about when we say loss prevention. We're talking about 43% of that value going in shoplifting. We're talking about approximately 35% going in the employee theft and helping their friends get better deals or taking it for their own selves. We're talking about 16% of loss coming from internal error, which is where we were talking about an integrated approach where that is just eliminated straight away. And we're talking about just under 6% coming from vendors and suppliers, where again, as we spoke about the back end, the supply chain, and having the systems to monitor where your goods are is very important. So I just wanted to raise that to you all to understand that these elements are not futuristic, and they should not be futuristic because you're losing today. So do look at it today and look at how you can integrate that within your IT spend and budget. Another thing I'd like to highlight is that if you look everywhere else in the world, people have identified that the IT budget is such an important backbone to their business, and they spend approximately 10% of their revenues or turnover on IT. And in India, it's not even 1%. So I think we need to recognize the fact that, budgets equal value. So if you're going to pay peanuts, you're going to get something that's ready for monkeys. So I just want to highlight the fact that these things are proving to be more important today, and they should be recognized by the top management that influence that within the team and get a steering committee within your retail organization to, push the entire project forward to its success.
Thank you for that, Raki. And I think as we move to Tanay, what do you see in the Tier 2 space? Clearly I think, you also mentioned about loss prevention, but just, all the other aspects of what you kind of see out there.
Yeah. For tier 2, I think people, I'm sorry, but in tier 2 people are more like retail obviously is a very service oriented sector. In tier 2 cities, people want much more service, better service than in tier 1 cities. So to provide that service, we need a very strong backend, because unless and until we have a very strong backend, it's very difficult to actually satisfy a customer in a tier 2 city, whereas I think it's conveniently much easier to satisfy a customer in a tier 1 city. Another thing that I see, adaptation of technology. Suppose we have launched a kiosk model, so like a video online catalog. Adaptation of that in the tier 1, I think, would be much more easier than in tier 2. Because in tier 2 cities, people still want to touch and feel. For e-commerce, I think the maximum orders or maximum business comes from maybe Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, or maybe Kolkata. But about 20% of the orders are from tier 2 or tier 3 cities, while the remaining is from tier 1. So the adaptation to technology is time consuming in tier 2 cities, and satisfying the customers is also really difficult in tier 2 cities. So technology is important. At the same time, it's difficult for adaptation. Another thing that we notice in tier 2 is we can implement the technology, but we need people to actually run the technology in a tier 2 city. So to find the manpower, we find it really very difficult to actually find the manpower in tier 2 cities, whereas, as we all know, it's readily available in the tier 1 cities.
I think great insights from the team over here. I'd love to open it up to the audience. Any questions that anyone may have, anything that you would like this great panel out here to kind of address would be great.
My name is Ismail. See, there is a unique difference of branded retailers in India and comparing with the USA and Europe. So USA and Europe, they do conceptualization of product and retailing. The manufacturing, they do it outsource. But Indian scenario, here the conceptualization, manufacturing and retailing, the branded retail they themselves is doing. When you look into the, the software, to integrate all these three, we cannot find any software based on the best practices. See, the branded retailers, multinational retailers, they can develop their own software. So it is not possible for, retailers having 10 or 20 shops. So to get the integrated software from the conceptualization to the retail frame, it is very important in the Indian scenario. So for that purpose, it is very difficult to get a best practice software as well as the implementation partners also. So how do you address that challenge?
There are software applications available. We are a provider of such applications. You do not have to be even more than one store and one manufacturing unit to be able to utilize the best of best practices as well as best of breed. Because remember, what defines you as a retailer is very different to someone else or a manufacturing business, and that's your USP. There are software applications available today that will not leave big dents in your pocket. Right from the start, from the conceptualization, working with you as a senior manager to understand you as a CEO or owner or whatever it is, what do you want to achieve out of it? What are your biggest pain areas? And we will work to make sure that those are the things that we target. We will do it in a phased manner. You don't have to buy everything straight away. You can buy things as you move along. But it means that you and I, as leaders, have to work throughout the project to make sure that we have the buy-in from other people in the team. Because remember, a lot of the time, the team is actually reluctant for change, especially to people that are, say, IT managers, for example, because they sometimes feel that they're going to lose their jobs along with a team of people. I mean, we've seen that in the past, and that's definitely not necessarily the case. It depends if you have your own in-house systems, which will always be out of date because they're obsolete the day that you start them, because change is, is very dynamic. It's not static. So you need to have applications like this. And in terms of, as I was mentioning earlier about partners, We have, a partner network in India. When I say partners, I mean my channel partners that go to the end customers. So we act as a principal, and we have about 70 odd partners, of which 30 of which have more than 15 to 20 customers each with that experience across India. So whether you are starting in the south and then moving into the north or whatever, there are companies that will work in a very holistic view with you, which is also to do with technology, will bring in other changes like HR practices. So for example, there's no point in having an amazingly wonderful software if the guy behind the till cannot use it, or doesn't know how to use it or what he's doing, because we like to buy things, we'll take our time, we'll look around, we'll shop around, but when we get to the till, we want it to be quick, otherwise we just move away. So we can definitely speak. If you would like to discuss this further, we can meet after.
Can I add something? Because I'm working in the apparel industry, and this is, basically the products are based on the trends. So could you have any such software where we can, go for this new product development, where trends are, fashions, colors, these things are, very important.
Can I take this question? Yeah. We are also their customer, right? And I think your question, I can put it in two different ways. One is that you said about European countries and India, they're having a different supply chain, whereas in India you have the same guy producing, doing the R&D as well as product development and selling. Well, I think it's much easier to adopt the system in India compared to in Europe, because those guys are not manufacturing. They have a different design section, they have a different buying section, then they have a supply chain, then they have vendors, so it's even difficult there. But it's just that they have the intention to do it and they're doing it. They know that's the only way. And here in India, we don't first have to have the intention, the right mindset to do it. And if we are ready to do it, we can of course do it in even more efficient way. And I would say it because I've seen the cases, because we are for sure as a big supplier to all these big giants, Zara's and Mango's, and we're also having our own brand. So we can see both the sides. And if I see it here in India, is first of all is when you want to implement any system, I think you internally have to be very, very strong, because once you start talking about a system, from your own team, you will have 10 different kind of questions coming up. This is not good, this is bad, this is way. We have been implementing the systems in our production side as well as in our retail side. Even today, we have to keep two people doing the same job. One guy who is doing the data entry and managing the system, and the other guy, he is not interested to work on the system. He still feels free to get the manual reports, because that's his style of working. So we need to have a mindset, no, nothing doing it. We agreed that, okay, in our organization, we said, okay, we don't want any manual data. The guy who wants to work on manual data, he is more than welcome to leave the organization. Thank you very much. But that's the way. You have to go one way. You have to be very simple. There will be suggestions coming out day and night. Do this, do that. We say, okay, let us first respect the system. Let's working on it. If you have any problems, sort it down. Then we'll discuss across the board and see what we can do. But first, implement the system.
So I'm not talking about these customizations and all. I'm talking about, the software based on the best practices.
Yes, I think
no software is available or best practices in one day. Can you have any style? You're into garment business, as you said, right? Can you tell me any one style which is selling the best throughout your life? No, it is to be.
Asking to the software, people, how do you are going to face this challenge in the future? Is there anything is happening? Because the title is itself is, that innovation in technology and, for the future.
Yeah. So can I take that piece? This word best practices is very loosely used term in the industry, and it's a word which is absolutely used in wrong context most of the time. There's nothing called best practices, okay? It's the best practice for you is something that suits your business. Okay. Number two, when you're trying to look at a technology, you may not get everything out of one single product. You have to approach technology or innovation or integration of technology with an open mind that, the business that I'm in might need 2-3 different technology components to work together. The most of the time, what we try to get it is that from this one particular application, can I get everything out of it? It may not be possible because it is the same framework of application with some knowledge that comes in from having implemented in your vertical, which gets captured in the application and it matures. That is what are called the best practices. These are particularly insights or learnings that comes into some of the process perspective. What you need to look at also is, as top management, that what is that I need to have this application for? And believe me, we may end up spending crores of rupees, but if you do an analysis, I don't think even we scratch more than 20% of that application. So most of the time it comes that, I'm not getting this, I'm not getting that, can this one application do everything for me? It doesn't happen like that. There could be multiple components which can come in. It could be very specific niche bolt-on which can sit on the base application to serve your purpose. So the framework you need to look at, and you need to look at how easily it can handle your business. And please, this best practices terminology is something which is very loosely used and abused terminology. Don't get carried away by this word called best practices.
Well, I think, guys, some good discussion out there. I think, as finish up, looks like another discussion outside of here as we kind of get together. So I appreciate the insights. I know we're going to be running short on time, but I want to take one more question before we finish up. I see a lady at the back over there.
In terms of, let's say if you're using a Fox Pro or you're using a DOS, which God forbid you're using, but how do you create applications? Would you say that you should invest first to kind of make your backend more flexible and then invest on front-end applications? Or would you say that build a bridge, temporarily sell the idea to the management that, hey, these applications would drive you ROIs or profits, and then kind of invest, or which would be a bigger investment to kind of upgrade your base technology?
I think, look, it's really, I think, it'll make sense, maybe right after this we'll have like a couple of us work with you offline, because I think there are a set of requirements you got to understand before we can actually answer that, because it's a very loaded question, and I think we could give you a politically correct loaded answer, but I think, reality is about understanding what that specific situation is, what is the case you're basically trying to solve, and I think that actually helps you go. Correct. Which business you're talking about, and I think that'll basically help us customize what that answer would be. I know there's a gentleman out here, which was the last question, so if I can have you go ahead, sir.
Technology can bring down the CAM.
Bring down the
overall common area maintenance.
Okay.
I know for sure this subject is interesting, but this question is to anybody in the panel. I'm talking about overall.
Bring out overall efficiency and cost around that? Common area maintenance.
See, the subject common area maintenance includes a lot of parameters. Yeah, the overall. Is there any insight or any statistics which can throw some light as to how technology has been able to reduce the overall common area maintenance cost?
I could give you one example that we basically go do quite a bit of, and actually it comes in really with the green buildings work we do and a couple of the green retailing space that we do. Really what we've done is started looking at that sensory data that exists, based on the video, based on areas like sensory technology, we can actually detect when people are in, people are not. And what we've done is really start looking at how you can look at the building efficiency and start reducing costs, specifically areas like air conditioning, areas where you basically go look at, do you need to operate lighting? There are areas by which we actually go look at safety and security. Do you really need to basically plug guards over there and basically start bringing the efficiencies? So clearly there are some of those areas that we go look at, not tied to areas like janitorial services or stuff, but more areas related to where you can leverage some of your electronic security items out there and how you basically make it more efficient. Yes, so there are things that we as a company surely do as a practice to go address that.
I would like to add on to it. There's a firm called Argos. I think people must be knowing about it. They use a very advanced kind of format where in retail stores they don't really showcase their product. They just use kiosks all around their stores, and they just store their stuff in the warehouse. It might be inside the store, or it might be at a distant location. So we all know the retail space has become very, very, very expensive now. So in this way, the cost really comes down, and these are basically regular items, maybe which a Tesco is selling, or they have all your daily needs, and they are regular branded items, so you don't really need to actually touch and feel it. You can obviously, you have to buy this, you can just look at the catalog and just purchase it. So the cost of retail space really goes down.
Got it. Good point. Listen, I think we could go with this session for a really long time, but I know, we were basically allocated a set of time. So I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to all the panelists for some great feedback, some insights into the space. So I think I also want to say thank you to all of you, and I know many of you are loyal customers, folks that we kind of work with. Thank you on behalf of the panel for just the strong relationship and the partnership we've had over the years. And I think personally for me, I want to say thank you on behalf of the 69,000 employees that basically sit in Tyco International. So I want to thank you guys for what you do and who you are. Thanks a lot.